And we are live with episode 2, Vrespawn. We've got a name now, right, Nikki?
That's right. The name Vrespawn. You can check us out Twitter, on our website. We are officially branded. We couldn't tell you last week because we didn't want anyone to steal the name because it was so cool.
Virtual reality, esports analysis, and weekly news. I was just trying to make a word. This is what this is a community-built show. There are no rules. Strangely enough, had people offer us money or talk about investing, and we're like, no. This is a community thing. We want to build the thing that us as a community that we want to see, and we don't want to have like weird rules that ruin it all with like banner ads and stuff.
Authenticity, zero bribing.
Yes.
That's our tagline.
Well, okay. So, first thing I want to talk about is the VR Master League. Onward is on break. But the ladder matches for Season 5 have been scheduled, and they are, right now as we speak, playing them. There's also some OC5 rumors that we may see Onward play over there, which is in line with the ESL VR League hints that they may include Onward. So, we'd have Onward in 2 leagues. I know Master League is primarily a Vive played sport. And VR League is all Rift. So that's where you're going to see the split in those 2 sports, see which one they like. And I do hear from players that there are people who prefer one or the other. What are your thoughts on that, Stealth?
Vive v Rift. I used to be Team Vive. I was originally a Vive purchaser, and things happened. HTC support. And now I'm on Team Rift.
But anybody who is honest about it says that, yeah, they're ready for something new. And Valve has been teasing their knuckles through their developers. So people are excited. Yeah. I mean, that's literally the biggest complaint that any of us who have a Vive complain about is that we freaking hate the wands. We're over it. We're over touchpads.
Horrible.
Touchpads look good on paper, but no, we're done. Let's get right into our Sprint Vector material that we pre-recorded for you. Servios' Sprint Vector, that esports racing game of running, jumping, diving, flying, and just attacking each other with whatever item you can get your hands on, is still going strong. The players are still sussing each other out. You're seeing a little bit of changes in points on the leaderboard. We're definitely going to see some more people getting higher as they start working on their emergent gameplay, the jump boosting mechanic. And Katie Dead here with her actually streaming the events, letting us see how they're happening. When you're very tired, you start to make mistakes. A common mistake you'll see players make, and you see her make here occasionally, where when they're in the air, they're still trying to do a running motion, and their hand ends up pointing the wrong way, and at that moment, you've transitioned into flying, and that'll give you a lot of trouble. If you try to transition to flying and point the wrong way, you're going to zip off in that direction. And brutally punishing when you make that mistake and have to recover and lose a lot of the momentum that you had just gained. But this jump boosting mechanic, if you keep your eyes open, you'll actually see where they hit a surface and suddenly they get way more speed after a jump than you would expect them to get. And it's all about timing. It requires a lot of practice. Eventually we'll start seeing tutorials and people explaining it. We'll be happy to break those down for you whenever we start seeing those videos come from the high-end players. But until then, it's a wide open field for you to figure things out and to figure out what is the best route. Like, they're still changing the routes. They're still deciding which ways to go. You'll see Katie take some riskier routes to try to get ahead. But, one mess up, you'll lose all your momentum and end up losing out on the game.
I'm here today in Sprint Vector. All right, so I'm talking with Cod's Worthless, except I just call him Cod. How have your games been going?
We're all what they call vector heads because we've completed like the weekly challenges and stuff before. I think most of my practice comes from the actual matches themselves.
Sure.
Because we're all completely pushing each other there. You'll see we get all of our records in those matches. We can never get them in single player like that. Most of us practice on like single player with the bots. Obviously, the bots aren't really a challenge for us, so we just use that just to get our times up and learn shortcuts in all the stages, and of course improve our base mechanics, because that's really all it is. There's a few base mechanics that you just got to perfect or at least know well.
If you have somebody who's watching this who has been playing Sprint Vector and they think they're pretty good but they have never done ESL, what advice or tips would you give them?
Even though I am doing very well in the ESL game so far, I still learn a lot from watching people that are beating me and that I'm beating. I still always learn more efficient paths, how to do mechanics better. That for me is the best way, and of course just practicing. It takes hours to get all the stuff perfectly. You do have to spend a lot of time in it.
Pull up the B cards. It wasn't too much different as you're going to see here. We ended up having Precision winning out, Joker coming back and getting closer to. As you can see, the point differentials are very tiny, so Kaznaz was able to hold on to first place quite well, with Cod's Worthless, who Haskell was talking to in that interview, pulling up second. Special thanks to Haskell again. Let's take a look at the European rounds as well. You see Stody uncontested. There's not a lot of competition over in European Union for most of the VR esports games, to be fair. Something we keep forgetting to mention here on the stream is that most of these leagues have monetary prize packages involved in them. As you can see, no one has any hope, I think, of catching up against Stody. But I do think that Sprint Vector, the way that it is built, it has a higher chance of you being able to get the points that you need. But for now, that was Sprint Vector. Sprint Vector is getting very competitive as more and more people are learning the jump boost mechanic that I talked about in that video. The emergent gameplay, as the developers call it.
Emergent gameplay. They can't get rid of it because it's part of the core movement system. So everyone just has to use it to be competitive.
It's wave dashing, buddy. That's what it is. I'm telling you, that emergent gameplay is the same stuff we saw in Smash Brothers Melee and other video games where there's knacky things that you could do, like bunny hopping and surfing and old Counter-Strike that made it into later games like TF2. That instead of removing it, they're like, no, it's just part of the game, and it's another like crazy complicated mechanic you can learn. With Sprint Vector, consistency and avoiding air dashes and mistakes is more important than ever. You know who else had some interesting moments this week was Pavlov. You've covered extensively. A fan favorite.
Pavlov and the Mafia. There's a little bit of drama this week, which we don't want to become a drama sort of tabloid show, but sticking a vintage World War II weapon through a wall is breaking several international laws, and that happened this past week. Let's check it out.
Competitive Pavlov explicitly bans wizardry, and that's exactly what got the Mafia's Alfredo in trouble this week in their game against Dream. Alfredo purposefully shoved his Car 98K into a wall in their competitive Dust 2 match to try to wall hack against Dream. This horrendous disregard for the explicitly clear no clipping through solid objects rule turned their 1-1 tie into an 0-2 loss for Alfredo and his team, the Mafia. While the Mafia did not endorse Alfredo's moves, the team captain Meaty One calling out Alfredo's actions moments after he abused the wall glitch, Alfredo still earned himself a 2-week league play suspension and a trip to Pavlov Purgatory. Meanwhile, EU's newest team VRath lost Star Opper, Infish, and Mr. S, who moved to the Leftovers and the Reapers respectively. To fill the spot, VRath picked up Physical, aka longtime league player Wrist, takes the role of in-game leader and Opper for VRath. This week, Team Magma had a 1-1 tie with the Reapers, who are ranked in third. Both teams, strangely enough, won on the opposing team's map pick with the same scores, 10-5, with the Reapers picking and losing on Train and Magma picking and losing on Cash. Oz Army landed their first tie this week, nearly taking a full win off the Mafia, but losing 10-9 on Inferno after an indisputable 10-6 win. TNT from NA and the Leftovers from Europe also tied this week, with the Leftovers winning 10-7 on Dust 2 and TNT winning 10-6 on Mirage. Arctic scored their second win 2-0 against Oz Army, but suffered a brutal but expected 0-2 loss against Voltron, who is the top team. Coming up, the game of the week will be the Leftovers versus the Reapers, two top-tier EU teams with players you may recognize from the VRath Wanted posters. The challenge match between Voltron and Dream, the two top-tier teams, on July 1st at 5 p.m. EST, will be the highest skill Pavlov gameplay the internet has yet to see. Lastly, check out this week's newsletter starring the infamous Alfredo talking about his questionable actions causing his team a forced forfeit. We're going to send it back to Nikki and PooNanners now at the desk.
Thank you, past Nikki.
Yeah, this is present Nikki here with a look at the ladder. As you guys know, Voltron was absolutely tearing it apart, as always. Dream and the Reapers following right behind them. Voltron, I think, is still leading by 40 points.
It's still very close to the ladder. As you know, they can all challenge each other. As right now, Voltron is trying their best to hold on the lead and doing a pretty dang good job of it.
So here's the thing. There are a lot of new guns that just came out in Pavlov and some buffs that are going to shake up the economy system of the game when you're low on money. So if you don't know, Pavlov works off of a money system similar to CSGO. If you're low on cash, buy cheaper weapons, and those teams that can find players that are better at using the revolver, which is like a cheap deagle now. Those kinds of guns, if you have a player that is really good with those, you can really turn around rounds where you're behind on money. So we'll see if any of those teams use those weapons to rise up in the ranks. But we got an interview coming up with one of those Pavlov players.
In any game, the thing I hate the most is being cheesed, but at the same time, who doesn't love a good cheese move? But the only thing more fun than a cheese move is beautifully executed anti-cheese measures. And we're going to talk to him about it now. The man, the myth, and the legend, Scorched. All right, I'm here with Scorched of Dream Team, if I remember correctly, second in command underneath Boris. But the thing that we really want to talk about before we get into the ladder is that ace that you scored that everybody's been watching, that 20-second video of you completely wiping another team. You want to walk us through what you were thinking there?
It was just a standard B rush from CT side. I heard they were coming up through B tunnel, so I had a flash in my hand. Tossed that through, cooked it just right.
Well, that match was over, right? I'm sure you're really happy about pulling that one off.
Oh yeah, that was a great round.
Best thing about pulling stuff like that off is catching it on video, right?
Absolutely.
Well, so your loss to Voltron. Are there more points you hope to get from other people before you challenge them again?
I don't know, man. I'm ready to go against Voltron whenever they are.
You had too much fun the first time?
Oh yeah.
So, what are some gimmicks that people can learn from you and other people to get better at Pavlov?
Play a lot of deathmatch. Aim for the head.
Yeah, I see you posed in front of the headshot practice in this custom map. Do you use this map a lot in order to work on your aim, or is it more about those moving targets?
It's mainly about the moving targets. Sure, this is great for, stationary targets, but that's not what Pavlov's about.
So what are your thoughts about the latest update from Dave?
It's amazing. Latest update, best update so far, I think. The M4 in particular, the recoil was all over the place last patch, but it's really been cleaned up. It's a lot better.
Well, are there any other recommendations for players that you can give them other than just getting into it?
I have 800 hours at this point. Yeah, if you want to get good, you got to play more.
Well, we can't wait to see more from Dave. Can't wait for them to eventually kick out a spectator client for us to all watch these games. So speaking of the update, and speaking of spectator that I brought up there talking to Scorch and the excitement for it, Dave has actually given us permission to show off the spectator client. I'm going to pull this up, but Nikki, StealthShampoo knows a lot more about it than I do.
This is exclusive, so I think this is some bayonet charging gameplay with the car, but that aside, the spectator mode here you can see shows a free cam, and when people get behind the sandbags here on bridge, this map makes you do some serious squats, by the way. When people get behind the sandbags, you can see how they're lit up blue right there. You can see people through walls. There's still a lot of polish going around with this, but this is exclusive footage here that we are getting to you guys first. Dave did an interview with us just a moment ago with Bro that just published literally hours ago. And he talked a lot about the spectator mode and how they're improving it. The spectator mode will actually work with live public games from what I hear. There are a lot of cool things that are coming, and they're really making a push for Pavlov Esports being viewable.
He's a one-man show, but man, he has done a lot in such a short space of time.
He is getting it done. If you guys want to check out the full interview, we'll have it linked in the description or somewhere accessible, probably on our Twitter as well.
The interview will be on VRRespawn.com. You check out VRRespawn.com, hit that Pavlov category, and you'll be able to find it. Bro and Haskell are two most prolific writers. Bro helped a lot for this segment. And if there are segments, other games that you want to help us with, you want to come on as a writer and write for us, this is a community show. So feel free to jump in and do that. Let's go ahead and talk about how awesome it's going to be for us to actually do commentary for these games as the esports for Pavlov goes in the future. We actually have a spectator client where we can just join for remote games and don't only have to do it at LAN games. I
am very excited. And he's still pushing out content other than the spectator mode. Battle Royale is coming out eventually. Everything needs a Battle Royale, but especially Pavlov.
Unspoken, Saul Rukefeld getting almost completely shut out of second place for the season in Unspoken. So let's take a look at our piece that we put together for that. In the game that started VR Esports, we are back with the Spell Slinger game by Insomniac, The Unspoken, making it into week 7 here in the VR League. Now you'll see again, we're back with number 1 Charizard, or Charizard for his friends. His first person view, playing that TK class he still likes. And this is Getsu in his Electromancer form, a favorite class of his, but still very knacky, very difficult to play, but he has a tiny advantage. He can teleport quickly. And the whole point of this game is break the other person's shield, force them to teleport, and then punish them when they're pinned and can't defend themselves. And the Electromancer, if you're smart and you're really good with your timing, you can sort of abuse that mechanic, that little bit smaller teleport time, and really eke out what you need. And you're going to watch during the course of this match that Getsu is able to slowly but surely get one up on Charizard, able to get really close to defeating him in this first round. Now, it is best 2 out of 3, but we only have time for the one. If you want to check out all these matches and see how it goes down, you'll need to check out Charizard's Twitch. Let's take a look at the North American bracket and how it played out this week. As you can clearly see, Charizard marches his way down the bracket, pretty much uncontested. And you see that Getsu does exactly the same thing with a little bit of a fight with Rukafelt. They have been fighting it out repeatedly, but Getsu, he ebbs and flows as his wrist gets a little bit better and was able to march his way down to fight Charizard, who still defeated him handedly. Charizard clearly in lead. Getsu's got number 2, and Rukafelt is so far behind at this point that he says he does not think that he has a way of making it back. Over in the EU, things are not too much different. Flush Go-Go just marching his way down the bracket. You can actually see that Derval gets one over on Yawning Soldier and is able to take that win. It does not help him win the championship game against Flush Go-Go. But let's go ahead and check out this interview that we got with Charizard. It gave us a lot of tips on how to get into the community. All right, we have here the #1 champion in the world for Unspoken. It's Charizard, the Unstoppable, dressed as his favorite blackjack, I believe. Lots of TK action from you. What went into your mind on deciding just, you know what, TK is the way to go?
So you brought up the whole me having the blackjack shirt, and I am very much a fan of blackjack as a class. I think thematically, having a laser sight, being able to accurately shoot around the opponent's shield, just so much fun. But when it comes down to what is the strongest, I still firmly believe that Kineticus is the top choice right now. And it's been working, so...
I think it's strongest as far as like strength, like it's a brute force class. You can't reflect its primals. I think it really plays up to somebody who has the strength and endurance to pull up those heavies. Well, you got to know where stuff in the map. You picked it up pretty quick.
There's a little bit of memorization to it. You learn where both, like you said, your 2 heavy spawns are, but each map also has like a collection of small items that you want to go around. You just learn all those positions on each one of the maps, and you're just like, well, I guess I win the primal trade, and if you win the primal trade, you win the whole thing. So
one of the main mechanics that you like to abuse for the TK is you do a lot of damage, bring down their shield, force them to teleport, then they can't go anywhere, so they're pinned. Free shot, more or less. The thing that made me think about that is we were talking about some information that Vidi gave us, talking about how that the different classes have different teleport cooldowns, and Electromancer, you're saying, has a shorter one. Do you suppose that someone could finely tune using that ability for the Electromancer to avoid or mitigate most of the damage from TK heavies?
Exactly the strategy that we've seen Getsu go for, and I think it is an effective answer to the class. There are 2 tiers of teleport cooldown timers. The Blackjack, Anarchist, and Kineticus all share, I think it's barely over 2 seconds, and then the Electromancer and the Drifter both share a shorter cooldown. Basically, what it allows them to do is whenever they have incoming damage that they might want to avoid, if they're in a situation where their hand shield breaks, they can teleport and then quickly teleport again to kind of mitigate it.
Definitely would be useful in that respect if you can get the timing right. But it's like Getsu says, it's about making those mistakes. And when 2 of you are going against each other, you have a little bit of lag to deal with, and he's got a wrist that's hurting him. I think in the end, it's going to be very hard for him to keep up with you. Right now, I know that you don't have too many people getting into the game just yet. I know it hasn't been advertising it, but we're hoping we'll get more people into there and that we get some of you pros to teach the young kids how to play.
I'm always willing to help players who are interested in the game. I mean, even before we started with the ESL stuff and all these tournaments, I mean, we had a great community where we were constantly playing with each other in range queue and like sharing strategies and like learning from each other, really. Dependence on reaction time and understanding the mechanics. Like, we're very active in the Discord, and especially with some of the sales that we've gone with a summer sale, we've been seeing new players crop up and be like, hey, I'm looking at this game, who wants to play? And people are jumping in, and I think they're pairing up with both other new players who are similarly inexperienced, so that they're not getting stomps, but also some of the older players in the community are stepping up to say, hey, let's coach them through some of these things to hopefully build up that competitive community a little bit.
So you heard it here from the mouth of the world champion, Charizard, that you could come to the Unspoken Discord. You can find the link. We'll even put it on our site. Join up. They will help you learn to play this game. You can get great if you want to put in the time. The #1 player in the world is willing to help you get good if you're willing to put in the time and commit your mind to it. Thank you very much, Charizard, for talking with us today. That's good old Charizard. Good guy. He made some mistakes during the Oakland Regionals where we first met each other that cost him first place. Because it seemed like he wanted to win with some flair as opposed to win instead of doing what it takes to win. Charizard is very technical in the game. He's a big fan of like writing up what he learns about it. And we've actually asked him to write for the site and be the community leader there. Speaking of communities that work hard to teach new players, you covered Echo Arena all by your lonesome last weekend.
Some of those guys move so fast.
Oh, yeah.
There's so many things you can pick up from how they like screw with the goalie and shoot off the backboard and even like coming out of the tubes. It's insane.
I could gas on all day about Echo Arena, but let's watch this piece you put together for us that will lead us into the interview, the impromptu interview that you were able to get into during the tournament.
The European side of Echo Arena's ESL Cup 5 pit Karma and Broken against each other in round 4, where Ali's team Broken took out her father's team 2-0. The two of them were, in fact, in rooms next to each other the entire time. Metamerx dominates the North American 5-2 ESL Cup this week with a flawless 5 wins, although second place team 11.5 and third place team NE Plus Ultra were able to both take a round off Metamerx, but no series victories. Unsurprisingly, NA Cup 5-1 was swept by OC4 champions Eclipse. Ultra actually gave up against Metamerx in their final NA match of the day. Ultra came out hot with a win in round 1, but after losing round 2, they lost a lot of steam and a player to a disconnect in round 3. Ultra was down 0-7 in the third round with 3:40 left on the clock. Plenty of time left to stage a comeback just at the time of the disconnect. However, Ultra chose not to wait for their player to reconnect and ultimately took the L. Ultra holds a solid standing at the third best team in Cup 5-2, losing to first place team Metamerx and second place team 11.5. With the top 2 Echo Arena teams rumored to be brought to Oculus Connect 5 in San Jose, California, Eclipse is almost a guarantee, but Metamerx is hot on their heels as the second team, with Ultra at 11.5 also looking to take a spot. So did Brendan disconnect out of rage or internet?
They
claim
think it was
computer
rage.
crashed.
It's probably a crash, but we think it was rage.
It was 0-7 with 3:40 left on the board, and they could have put up a fight. I mean, they brought you guys to round 3.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah.
No. I've thrown 12-0 leads before, so it's definitely possible.
You guys are undefeated in 5-2, is that right? I don't think you guys dropped a game.
Yeah, we didn't. It's 5-0. We went 5-0 today.
Yeah, I went 5-1
Nice.
rounds, yeah.
What does that mean you
And
guys
last-
win?
I think
$55 each and 100 points.
We really didn't need to win this week, but it's nice.
No, we need to win every week.
Okay, yeah, fair. We need to win.
We need points.
Dude, that's what's great about OC5 is we're all floating in space right now, but we're in a gravity-bound alcoholic location. I mean, that's the real part. In
We're
real
all
life.
talking. Okay, we're done. We're gonna get beers. Not together, but
I too. What's your stream, Shrimpy? Pimp it out. You got some crazy long-range three-pointer shots today. Where do people go if they want to watch some long-range snipes?
It's twitch.tv/Shrimbits.
Dude, that's some flair right there. Yeah, it's right. Yeah, let me zoom in. Hold still. Right there. Right there, if anyone wants. Twitch.tv/Shrimbitsky. Well, nice job, guys. Enjoy your $55. What are you going to do with all of that money?
I'm gonna pay off some bills. I'm just kidding.
Dude, if you can pay off all your bills with $55, that's incredible. GG's.
All right, man.
Nice work,
Thanks
guys.
for streaming. You did good, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. Keep improving.
All right, man. That was really fun. I like those. I like those more personal conversations right after the games. We've talked to David Yee about that before, and then everybody has their own personality and the models for that Ready at Dawn put together for Echo Arena. Like a guy's like folding his arms.
Arms, and like one guy's got his arms on the side, one dude's holding onto a desk. Or
the dude
whatever's
motions
in front
to
of
his
him.
name above his head. Let's take a look at that bracket real quick. We can see the first cup. That's not the one that they were in. And Cup 5-1, Eclipse just stomped that one 5-0. But then we actually see there's Metamercs winning again over 11.5. 11.5 used to be top dog, but now the dream team of Fair Enough, Speedy, and Strembitsky taking them down and really stepping up their game for stage 2 to seal that spot, as they talked about during their interview. If you take a look at the stage rankings, it is Eclipse and Metamercs right at the top of 200 for the stage, but Eclipse's ranking for the stage is kind of pointless. How well they do for stage 2 doesn't matter because they've already secured their spot for the world qualifier. Over in the EU, we see that blah, 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 ever since they reformed after the Niles has retired from the game and Aftershock has rejoined his buddy Boop on this team, that they are still holding on to their first place in stage 2. Over Boost in their own cup. But then way over in Cup 2, we're able to see that Team Gravity, even though they don't need to, they decided to show up this last week and show that they could win and still win, even though they've already secured their first spot for the World Qualifier. Now, they still going to have a fight in front of them if they want to make it down to OC5, but VR Jersey, with some of the sponsorships that he's getting now and signing new players, he's pretty confident that that is going to be the way it goes down. Did you notice that the EU players looked faster?
Someone actually asked me that in the lobby. I think that was Eclipse. They were like, what do you see them do differently when they come out of the tubes? Where the EU teams are a lot of fast offense, and they all do that.
Yeah, they all like everybody knows the mechanic of stacking up on top of each other, so you kind of like re-grab and get your speed there. But it seems like the European players are all good at it. Like, they're not just one team's good at it and the other team's like not that great. They're all good at it and they form up together.
The EU is so used to playing against other people who move that fast, or NA. Not everyone uses that hyper offensive stacking, flying around strategy. So it'll be interesting to see when the two metas collide OC5.
Yeah. Remember, Hasko is our lead rider for Echo Arena. We're taking on as many people who want to come help out. This is a community-built show. She has a lot of interviews and articles that she has done, more in-depth interviews with other players on her YouTube channel, and you can catch those inside of her articles at vrespawn.com. Echo Arena Invitational emails have gone out. The ESL is doing another invitational out in the UK in Leicester, I believe is the way it's pronounced. So there are people scrambling to get passports, people paying a lot of money in order to expedite passports. So another thing I wanted to talk about, Echo Combat, the open beta went really well. People enjoyed what they got to see. It turns out they didn't get to see everything we got to see at E3, so we were kind of lording that over them. Our community's own player-turned-developer, Sakura, hinted that there will be more because it said open betas with an S, but that is all they're saying for now. So we know that we're going to get to see more as they probably add more to the game before the official release. But we know the official release has to be coming soon because there's already discussion that ESL is planning on doing Echo Combat stuff, or at the very least, we're going to see it at OC5. But right now, what we want to talk about is another favorite game of StealthShampoo that he alluded to earlier, Beat Saber, and a special announcement that they had.
Beat Saber, ladies and gentlemen, multiplayer is already in a community-made glitchy alpha, but we're getting official developer support of it, and they're actually taking someone from the modding community to come work with the Beat Saber team to help with multiplayer. So this is an indie game with a large, passionate modding community that are combining forces to make the biggest VR game, only game that breaks 1,000 concurrent players. We're only talking on Steam. We're not talking Oculus.
It's a beautiful and fun game, but I think a lot of the fervor around it is from that Live support and how beautiful those that content from Live gets.
Yeah.
That was always the question or problem that people have with VR. Like, you see a VR video and you don't really get it. You just see a small portion of one eye and you're like, oh, that game looks terrible. I don't want to play that game. But then with Live, with the mixed reality support, you're like, oh, wait, that's what it communicates better. That's what it feels like to be in that game. That's awesome. It's the same reason why we like to interview in game. When we interview in game, people aren't nervous and self-conscious. Instead, they feel more comfortable because they're game character. They feel more who they are inside VR. That's fun to say. Speaking of Live and multiplayer support and Swan that I mentioned, you went out to Live and actually played a match off against her where she got to pick out the songs, right? You want to walk us through this game, how this worked out for you?
Yeah, so we did a Beat Saber tournament. The rules were first round was picked rock, paper, scissors, and all the following rounds were picked via a loser. If it was a style battle, it was over. I actually purposefully tried not to wear anything fancy because if I even looked like I was trying in the style battle, I still would have got demolished. So I went super StealthShampoo casual, and she came in with like a really fancy dress, as she always does. But it was awesome. It was local multiplayer. Beat Saber actually has local multiplayer. It's called the Party Mode.
Yeah, and you can catch the entire competition if you want to on twitch.tv/LIV.
And just follow them on Twitter, twitter.com/live. They were really happy with this stream and the turnout for it. So if you want to support more in the future, check it out, twitter.com/live. Shout out to them. Shout out to Swan. I love Swan. I love those Live guys. That is all we have to talk about this week, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to help out with any of this, reach out to our human resources department. We could use writers, editors, graphic people.
Anything. This is a community built thing. We're not really in charge. People have asked us to sort of play that role, and our role for being in charge is you do what you want, and if it looks good, then we'll just keep using it. That's why I'm wearing a tie now. It's our ever increasing commitment for production value here at V Respawn.
Yeah, but I got that sweat rag because we're talking about hot VR news. You know, we gotta keep it cool and StealthShampoo HQ. We especially need players to interview. We want all your voices heard. So if you are a player, you want to be interviewed via voice or text, actually, if you're more comfortable writing, then hit us up. Especially players, reach out to us and represent your favorite game. You can be interviewed if you just want to type to us or you want to come have a chat. Either one works.
Yeah, us VR esports players, we are a small community, but we are a passionate and excited community. So join us and let's continue to build this so that we can know what everyone else is doing. And for those of us like me that just have a short attention span, we got a video here and we have an editor that is trying his hardest to make them short and digestible. Thank you very much, and we'll catch you in the next one. Thank you, Stealth.
Yeah. Thanks, PooNanners.